Hey everyone, it's Scott Lucas from Concentric AI, and today I'm joined by Baron Capital's Henry Miorga. He's their CIO, as well as our own Shankar Subramaniam, and he's our CTO and one of our co-founders. Thanks, you guys, for joining me today. And let's get started right away. Just ask Henry about Baron Capital and what you do.
Baron is a 40-year-old company. We're long-term investors. Um, we are committed to research-driven investment. So the larger part of our organization is actually research analysts and portfolio managers.
So, Henry, let me ask you about Baron Capital and how they've been affected by the growth in file sharing and the move to the cloud.
Your data begins to become very fluid in the way that it's being managed and in the way that it's being secure, because now you have security control from a central repository to a distributed repository. As you go to things like Office 365 or cloud services, it is no longer the system administrator that has access to the data. Now the person that owns the data on OneDrive can actually start sharing that data out with somebody else. You no longer have control. The control is in somebody else's hands, and it's very difficult to peel that onion, right? To pull that back, right? Because you can't tell somebody you cannot share the. I mean, you can, but it's not practical. That's just not how people work.
So, Henry, what are Baron's data protection challenges?
Everything that you're doing is about trying to protect the data. And as you mature, you realize, wait a minute, I really need to understand what is it I'm protecting. And when you think about that question, when a client asks you, how is my data protected? Now you have to say, wait a minute, do I know where the client's data is? Can I identify the data for XYZ client? And do I know where it's being held? Well, that process of discovering, that process of understanding your data is taken for granted, but it's not. It's actually a very complicated process, especially if you have a lot of legacy data. And in our case, everything was legacy. Now I might be worried about Azure or Office 365 or OneDrive or who knows what else people are putting data on. And you should know, because that's precisely the problem, right? Proliferation of data. So building those controls and retrofitting that into existing data is a very challenging process. And that's where we found ourselves about 2 years ago. And hence why I ended up with Concentric.
So, Henry, what did Concentric help you find in your data?
One thing that we found is stale data. Trust me, tons of stale data. Another thing that we found is data that was misnamed. So there would be a file that had a name that you thought was something else, but in reality contained data that was either critical or maybe not important, incorrect name. So that also gives you the sense of, okay, so you have the document, it's mislabeled, that shouldn't be there. We should probably clean it up. And then as you distribute the data across things like OneDrive or other sources on the outside on the cloud, really to understand where your information that is important is being put in different buckets and how it relates to each other.
So, Henry, once you used Concentric to map your data, what did you do with those insights?
That topology mapping that allows you to see where your data is being sitting has prompted us to do certain changes in the way that we allow documents to be moved. And in the future, we're going to do more with Office 365, tools to enforce those rules so that we can have a consistent policy internally and externally. And guess what? We're not going to manage those policies directly to Office 365. We're going to do it through Concentric, right? Because with Concentric, you can apply the same policy for data that is both in your traditional bucket system as well as what's happening on the cloud. And that is key, because you don't want to have multiple points of management. Otherwise, you will be inconsistent. It's human nature. My guys will make a mistake. It's just the way it is, and people will change things. So you need something abstracted that allows you to combine both worlds and allows you to apply policy with the understanding of the data. And that's what we're hoping to achieve. We're on our way. We still have some ways to go. We changed a lot of the internal processes of data cleaning, stale data, and now we're trying to evolve to a cloud-based protection system.
So, Henry, what's been unique about Concentric's approach to data access governance?
The thing that attracted me to Concentric when I met them at that conference was that their approach was based on a technology, on a computer technology that I was kind of aware of, NLP, and not just NLP, but really in-depth textual analysis, that brought to my attention the fact that what you really need to do is not to find a word in a document. Finding a word in a document is pretty straightforward. But if you understand the context of a set of words within a document, and you can then classify that document on the likelihood that it's a statement, a likelihood that is a private information, a license, a driver's license, so on and so forth, then you have a much more sophisticated mechanism for classifying your data. And what I saw Concentric show me that day gave me a sense that they understood that the problem was not about finding a sentence, but understanding whether that sentence was within the context of a particular set of documents. That really triggered something in me, and I said, these guys get it.
So, Henry, I'm sure you looked at other options for doing data access governance. Can you tell me about what you learned about Concentric's competitors and how they approach the problem?
But what I did, which I gave them a hard time, is I went to see if somebody else could do it, right? Because it's not like they invented the wheel, right? So I said, some other people may be doing this. And I actually went and I spoke to other vendors to see if they had something like it. And they sort of did, but not quite, because they were coming at it from the other side. Oh, we'll build a dictionary, we'll build an index, and then we'll correlate the index. Well, that's okay, but now you're spending a lot of time building these indexes. And even if you have an index, doesn't mean that you can really correlate the information properly. So they had the right approach because they were trying to understand the context of what was inside that document. And that to me was the key to success. So there you go. That's why I chose them.
Henry, I know you've talked a lot about that your team is pretty small, yet you are tasked with looking after and protecting data that is quite vast, that has been generated over the last 40 years in your organization. Can you elaborate a little bit more on how Concentric's security analysis team is providing value to your team in sort of working together and sort of helping you in this journey?
If I open my garage, I have all the tools to do carpentry in my house. I got them all. I bought them all, saxos, everything. However, when I have to do very specific work, I hire a carpenter, right? It's about craftsmanship. And in this particular case, I may have the tool, but I still need the craftsmanship. And the common experience that your team brings to the table by solving the same issues or different issues for other customers is what I leverage that. That's the benefit that I bring from that, right? Your experience, your craftsmanship, your knowledge of the software, which I can possibly not equal, and certainly a guidance as to how to approach those problems better. Because at the end of the day, to me, it's saving time.
Henry, how is Concentric positioned to help Baron Capital grow?
Let's say we open a different mutual fund and we're doing now investments in Asia markets. Well, the context of the sentence for that investment changes. But once I develop that context, anything that comes forward is now going to be able to classify easily, right? And so we evolve as a business, but the technology also evolves with us, because the ability to understand context is really what's at the heart of the problem, right? And that is why, as we work through this process with them, we are very bullish about the success that we're going to have and we have had with Concentric.
Henry, thanks a ton. Appreciate your time today. Shankar, thanks a ton for sitting in with us on this conversation. We're delighted to partner with Baron Capital to help them with their data security, data protection needs. And Henry, I just really can't thank you enough for all the help you've given us today and your support through the process.
I give credit where credit is due. It's a good solution. It's a good team. They have done a great job for us.